Okay, what I'm going to do today is reassemble a fuel cap that I disassembled. So I'll cover some things as I put it back together that I found when I pulled it apart, and some things to watch, and some things that I possibly did wrong, and how I worked out how to pull it apart in the first place. The first thing I'm going to do is put the little flap back in the lid. So we've got this spring here, there's a little tail on it, and the little tail goes into a hole in there. So put the spring in there, and then put this pin in, and the pin has to go mostly in, and then you feed it up into the cap like so, and then push the pin all the way through, and the pin comes through here, and now it's got the spring there that keeps the little flap closed. Now on the side of it here that helps keep it detent is this tiny little ball bearing that sits in a little groove just there, and there's this little spring that is what keeps it in place, and it's sticking to the magnetized end of my little screwdriver. I'll try and put it in by hand, and then we get this little plate and screw, and that is what holds that in. So, oops, itty bitty little spring. That is annoying me greatly. Okay, so that's where the little spring needs to go. So we get the tab that pushes on the end of the spring. Oops, and the spring left. Spring back in. Spring sticking to the little tab. Whatever you do, don't lose the little ball. That's a nightmare. Okay. So, probably put your finger on top and jam it all together is the best way to do it. You screw the screw in. And you can see now, little spring's captive, and we push this down. Oops, don't do that, you lose the spring. Luckily I've got a spare. Somewhere. Okay, note to self, don't try and show the flap opening until you've got the next cover on, because the spring is now somewhere hidden on my bench, and it's such a tiny little spring, to pull this out again, that I doubt I will ever find it. Like I'll be buying some more fuel caps to rob for parts. Once again. Oh, screws come out again. The spring is very annoying. Let's see if we can get it to stay in this time. popped out. Oh, this is infuriating. I guess the main point all I have in sharing in this debacle is not to lose the ball bearing. Yep. And I just lost that spring too. Yep, it's gone. Bugger. So, I found one of the springs I lost, but I might change track a little bit at this point of time. I might put the top section in, and then we'll put that in at the end. So this is just the rubber seal piece that goes in. So we'll pop it in. It goes through a couple little holes in the top section. So I get them to sit in nicely. This cap offers carbureted super sport. So instead there's no vent circuit through the cap like there is on well, pretty much everything else with these caps. So this piece goes in next. This piece just basically blocks the vent system off. If it's a cap with a vent system, it has a couple little valves that look like this, that being the top side. And what this does is it allows the cap to vent, to suck air in, so the breather circuit through a lot of them is through the cap, and it comes out through the rubber grommet you'll see under the cap. So I'll put that in. This is the next part. This is the lock mechanism. It's the next part that goes on. Give it a bit of a spray where it has to go through that bit of rubber. Make sure that this is sitting in here, just to block all that off. It goes over the two posts and down, and then get it to sit in where it needs to go. It's not quite all the way home. There we go. Snapped in. I think it's over this post here that it snaps, where the screw goes at the back there. Okay, so that's in. And a little ball I've put in here with a whole lot of grease, just hold it there for the moment. I think we'll try and put this set up in later. We'll see if that works. That might not even work, who knows. Okay, so that's in. In the back of the lock, there's this steel ring. So the steel ring goes in there. Then next is an O-ring. I'll put a little bit of O-ring grease on. And then at the back of the lock, there's this flat washer. It just sits on there to seal it all up. And what preloads the cap is these 4 springs. So these 4 little springs go on the 4 posts. There. Then this is the tank seal. It sits on over that, and just make sure that it can slide up and down on the springs. I might actually, because some of these can rust up pretty bad over time, I'll just give it a little spray with the inox lanolin, which is a nice lubricant, and the lanolin tends to stick around. Okay, so that goes on there. Then this plate goes on top to hold that, and the top of the lock mechanism is this bit. And this gets pulled. These 2 pins here lock in here, and this pulls the whole thing and makes it work. So you've got a spring here, and you've got to get the pins into there so that it will pull it back and forward, which Might be something else for me to make a mess of. Oh, maybe it worked. What I should have had is the key so I could test it. So I'll put these couple of screws in just to hold it all together. Oops. Lost my screw in the anti-seize pot. There we go. I generally cover everything with anti-seize. It doesn't need to be Loctited. Oops. So put these screws in, and that should have all that side of it in one piece. I think now maybe I'll move on to hoping like hell I haven't lost my little ball and trying to get that incredibly annoying spring in and getting it to stay in place. Might be another comedy of errors. Okay, so that's where it needs to be. So put that in, push it in, put the screw in, hold it all together. And we'll see if I manage to lose the ball or not. You can see the tail of the spring here held in by the body, and so we lift it up and sticks and down. So it sort of works like it should. It's a relief. Now I'll go and find a key and we'll see if it actually works. So now I'm back with the key. Flip it open, key in, and there you go. Fuel cap, that works. Thank goodness for that. Okay, so we've got one more screw to put in, which is this screw here, and just holds this part at the back in. You can see it's pretty manky inside this tank. These are actually, most of these parts are out of a different cap I had, because the ones in this cap were just with that right white powdered rust finish that you get from a tank. The tank on this bike was actually all rusted out, had to be replaced. And that, when you push the tank down, you feel that, you push against that when this clips in. So that part's back together. Now we put that back into this. When I was trying to pull this apart, I had assumed, I know I've had these apart before, but a long time ago, that the pin that goes through here was one long pin. And I was trying to punch it out, and it wouldn't punch out. I was getting really frustrated. And so I eventually went and I was trying to use this punch, which is sort of the second smallest punch I've got. I got the smallest punch I've got and tried punching it in, and then it went in, but it went inside the roll pins, just the roll pin here that secures it, and it got stuck in the roll pin. So then I had to try and pull the punch out of the roll pin, and much to my surprise, the roll pin pulled out of the cap. And when I got one out, I realised that it was two halves of a roll pin in from either side, not one long pin holding it in. So through a mistake, I worked it out, which is pretty cool. Always a good way to do it. So we get the cap and put it in the middle, like so. And then we get our roll pins, try and work out which way they were in. As it happens, the roll pins are seated into the cap and they pivot. they're seated in the gold piece and they pivot in the aluminium piece, which is not what I was expecting when I was hitting things trying to get it apart. So now we'll see how we go tapping it all back together. Could be a mess, and a really good way to damage stuff we don't want to damage. I don't know. Actually, I might better look at my roll pins. I'm guessing the ends that are crushed a bit are the ends that should go in. So we'll try that. That one that way. Okay, that one started going in. This roll pin, this end's crushed more than this end. So we'll put that end of the roll pin in and give it a bit of a hit. It's a pretty hard thing to restrain, as in it's impossible, I think. Probably do that better, I'm sure. It might stand up now and allow me to tap. It's the sort of thing you need 3 hands for. There we go. Or a willing assistant. A willing assistant is always handy. I think they should go in a little bit further than that. We'll see how far they want to slide. A bit of a clout. See how far we can make it go. Oh, they're both in about the same distance. And that's the fuel cap, assembled. Disassembly is the reverse of assembly. Make sure you don't lose the little spring or the little ball that's in there. I've already done that. And the pins, knock a tiny punch in there. This is my number 1 little pin punch, and it says it's 2 millimeters. So a 2 millimeter pin punch will go inside the roll pins and then hopefully pull them out. There you go.